Deep in the uncharted Yucatan jungle stands a temple that defies explanation. When seasoned archaeologist Dr. Nathan Cole discovered it, he thought it would be his crowning achievement. Instead, it became his nightmare. Following a map from a crumbling codex, he found massive stone walls with carvings that seemed to move in the light. The locals had warned him this place wasn't meant to be found. Inside, Nathan encountered impossibilities. Empty chambers filled with whispers, carvings that mirrored his own face, and at the heart of the temple, a perfectly preserved altar holding something that shouldn't exist. What ancient power still lived within these walls, waiting for someone to awaken it? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The faded photograph trembled in Nathan Cole's weathered hands. It showed him standing proudly beside a Mayan stela, his arm around a smiling woman, Margaret, before she became his ex-wife, before the academic world branded him a fraud. His cramped apartment walls were plastered with maps and rubbings, the floor cluttered with ancient texts. Afternoon light filtered through dusty blinds, illuminating dancing particles that settled on piles of rejection letters from prestigious journals. The most recent one lay open on his desk. While Dr. Cole's theories about pre-Mayan civilizations remain intriguing, without substantial evidence, Nathan tossed it aside. 15 years ago, he'd been archaeology's rising star. Now at 63, he was the department joke, the man who destroyed his career chasing shadows. He poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon, the amber liquid catching light as he raised it toward the photograph. "To better days," he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. The doorbell rang. Unusual. Nathan received few visitors these days. A courier stood outside, holding a package wrapped in brown paper. "Dr. Nathan Cole?" "Sign here, please." The package bore no return address. Nathan signed and closed the door, examining the parcel. It felt light, like it contained paper. He carefully unwrapped it, revealing an acid-free preservation box. Inside lay a fragment of what appeared to be an ancient codex, its edges crumbling despite careful preservation. His heart quickened. The material looked pre-Columbian, the iconography unlike anything in established archaeological records. He slipped on cotton gloves before carefully lifting the fragment. The symbols were similar to Mayan glyphs, but contained elements he'd never seen. In the center was what appeared to be a map, with landmarks he recognized from the Yucatan Peninsula. Nathan's hands began to shake. This was exactly what he'd theorized, evidence of a civilization that predated the Maya. He reached for his phone, hesitated, then dialed. After 4 rings, Department of Archaeological Studies. "Elena, it's Nathan Cole." A pause. "Nathan, it's been a while." Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been his graduate student once. Now she held the position he'd been denied after his disgrace. Unlike others, she'd never completely written him off. "I've received something, a codex fragment. It's extraordinary." "Nathan," her voice carried a familiar caution. "I know how it sounds, but this is different. It shows a temple location, exactly where I always theorized it would be. The dating looks pre-Mayan." Silence on the line. "Then do you have authentication?" "Not yet." "That's partly why I'm calling." Another pause. "Send me photos. High resolution. I'll take a look, but Nathan, don't get your hopes up. We've been here before. This is different," he repeated, staring at the fragment. "I can feel it." After the call, Nathan carefully photographed the fragment from every angle, then spent hours hunched over his reference books, cross-referencing symbols. His eyes burned from strain, but each passing hour cemented his conviction. At 3 a.m., he finally collapsed into his chair, staring at the map. If he was right, this codex led to a temple deep in the Yucatan jungle, one built by a civilization that shouldn't have existed according to current archaeological understanding. His phone chimed with a text message. "Elena, analysis software confirms the pigments appear authentic. It's consistent with your theory. Need more tests." "Do not go public yet," Nathan smiled. She'd analyzed the photos immediately, despite her skepticism. Deep down, she still believed in him, or at least in the possibility. He closed his eyes, allowing himself to imagine vindication after all these years. The temple would change everything, rewrite history books, restore his reputation. He could almost see Margaret's face when she realized he'd been right all along. His gaze fell on his passport, tucked in his desk drawer. He had enough savings for one last expedition, one last chance. The codex fragment seemed to pulse in the dim light of his desk lamp, its map calling to him across centuries. Nathan traced the route with his finger, imagining the journey ahead. "I'll find you," he whispered to the temple that waited somewhere in the jungle. "Whatever you are, I'll bring you into the light." Outside his window, dawn broke over the city, bathing his cluttered apartment in golden light. For the first time in years, Nathan Cole felt alive again. The hunt was on. The key to the storage unit felt unusually heavy in Nathan's pocket. 5 years since he'd last visited, since he'd locked away the remnants of his father's legacy, along with his own fading hopes. "Unit 23B, he muttered, walking past rows of identical doors. The hallway smelled of dust and forgotten things. He unlocked the padlock, rolled up the metal door with a rattling groan. Inside sat cardboard boxes, a few pieces of furniture covered in sheets, and in the back corner, his father's old expedition trunk. Nathan dragged it forward, the leather worn but still sturdy. His father, William Cole, had been a respected archaeologist until his disappearance during an expedition 30 years ago. The official report cited an accident, a fall into a cenote, but no body was ever recovered. The brass latches opened with a satisfying click. Inside lay field equipment, folders of notes, and beneath them all a leather-bound journal Nathan hadn't opened since his father's disappearance. He lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of memories. Back in his apartment, Nathan placed the journal beside the codex fragment. The similarity struck him immediately, the region, the descriptions. His father had been searching for the same temple. Pages of meticulous notes, drawings, and coordinates filled the journal. One sketch in particular caught Nathan's attention, a temple facade with distinctive elements that matched symbols on the codex. "You were close," Nathan whispered, tracing his father's drawing. "So close," his phone rang. "Elena, I've completed the preliminary analysis. The material dates to approximately 1200 BCE. That's pre-Mayan," Nathan finished, excitement rising. "Almost 1,000 years before their classical period." "Yes, but Nathan, you know what this means? If authentic, it contradicts established Mesoamerican chronology." "I need to meet with you," Nathan said. "There's more?" "My father's journal. He was tracking the same site. They agreed to meet at a small cafe on the edge of campus, away from colleagues who might recognize them together. Elena arrived wearing sunglasses, her academic reputation too valuable to risk being seen with archaeology's most famous pariah. "I brought this for you," she said once they were seated, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were her analysis results. The language pattern appears to be a protoform, predating even the oldest Mayan inscriptions. "I've never seen anything like it, because it's not Mayan," Nathan said, opening his father's journal to the relevant pages. "Look, Dad believed this civilization was a predecessor, possibly wiped out or absorbed." Elena studied the journal entries, her professional skepticism battling with academic curiosity. "These temple drawings. The astronomical alignments would be extraordinary if accurate. I need funding," Nathan said directly. "One expedition. If I'm wrong, I'll disappear for good. You'll never hear from me again. The department would never—" "Not them, Whitaker." Elena's expression darkened. "James Whitaker, your former student who now collects antiquities of questionable provenance? Absolutely not. He has the resources and the interest. And despite his methods, he's never been convicted of anything, because he's wealthy enough to avoid consequences. Nathan, he's exactly what gives our field a bad name. I need this, Elena." His voice cracked slightly. "One last chance." Elena's silence spoke volumes. Finally she sighed. Whitaker's conditions will be problematic. He doesn't fund expeditions out of academic interest. I know what I'm doing. Do you? She leaned forward. The translation of these glyphs suggests warnings, Nathan. References to those who watch from within stone and temples that hunger. This isn't just archaeology anymore. All ancient sites have protective superstitions. Your father disappeared, searching for this place. The statement hung between them. Nathan closed the journal. That's why I have to go. That evening, Nathan called James Whitaker. The conversation was brief, businesslike. Within an hour, a contract arrived in his email, funding in exchange for exclusive rights to all discoveries. Nathan hesitated before signing. Academic protocol demanded any findings be properly documented, preserved for study. Whitaker's history suggested a private collection, hidden from scholars and the public alike. His phone rang again. His daughter, Sophia. "Dad? Mum told me you're planning another expedition." News traveled fast. "Sophia, this time it's different. I found something real." "That's what you always say." Her voice held the weariness of someone who'd seen this pattern before. "Dad, you're 63. These obsessions, they cost you your marriage, your career. What more are you willing to lose?" "I have to know," Nathan said simply. "Your grandfather was right. I can feel it." After they hung up, Nathan stared at Whitaker's contract on his screen. With a deep breath, he signed it and hit send. The codex fragment and his father's journal lay side by side on his desk. Two pieces of a puzzle generations in the making. Whatever waited in that temple, Nathan was now committed to finding it. Heat shimmered over the dirt road as their jeep approached the village. Chickens scattered. Children paused their play to stare at the strangers. Nathan wiped sweat from his brow, scanning the humble structures for anything resembling the local contact Whitaker had arranged. "You're looking for Pablo," an elderly woman called from her doorway. "He waits at the cantina." The cantina turned out to be little more than a covered porch with mismatched tables. A man in his 70s sat alone, nursing a drink. Deep lines etched a face weathered by decades under the Yucatan sun. "Dr. Cole," the man said without looking up. "You are not welcome here, but I was paid well to meet you." Nathan sat across from him. "I need a guide to these coordinates." Pablo glanced at the map, then pushed it away as if it carried disease. "Those places are forbidden. The elders say the ground there breathes." "I've heard similar warnings at every site I've excavated," Nathan replied with practiced patience. "Usually based on superstition." Pablo's dark eyes fixed on Nathan. "Not superstition. History." He reached into a small pouch at his waist and withdrew a small object. "My grandfather made this when his father disappeared into those jungles." The wooden figure was small enough to fit in Nathan's palm, carved into a strange, elongated shape that resembled a man with arms wrapped around himself. Its eyes were obsidian, catching the light with unsettling depth. "Protection," Pablo explained, "against the hungry temple, the place that consumes." Nathan turned the figure in his hands, noticing intricate symbols carved into the base. "Some match the codex." "May I?" he asked, pulling out his camera. Pablo nodded. "Document it well. Perhaps when you are gone, others will listen to its warning." "When I'm gone?" "To the temple. Or forever. They are often the same." Nathan photographed the figure from various angles. "I need a guide who knows those jungles. I'll pay well. No one will take you." Pablo finished his drink. "Except perhaps Miguel. He has nothing left to lose since his wife died. He respects the old ways less than others." That evening, Nathan met Miguel outside the village. A man in his 30s with a permanent scowl and eyes that darted constantly, as if expecting attack from any direction. 3 times the standard rate, Miguel stated flatly. "Half now, half when we return." "If we return." "Agreed." Nathan handed over an envelope of cash from Whitaker's advance. Miguel leafed through it, then stared toward the jungle's edge, visible beyond the village perimeter. "My grandfather said trees there whisper names of the lost. He forbade me from ever entering that region. Yet here you are. My grandfather is dead, and money speaks louder than ghosts." He pocketed the envelope. "We leave at dawn." Bring only what you can carry easily. The jungle takes what weighs you down. That night, the village elder invited Nathan to observe a ceremony. An offering to those who watch, she explained. Villagers gathered around a fire, chanting in a mixture of Spanish and Mayan dialects. The elder approached Nathan with a bowl of dark liquid. "Drink," she instructed. "It will prepare your eyes to see truth." Nathan hesitated. Hallucinogens were common in traditional ceremonies, but he needed a clear mind. "I appreciate the honor, but then you go blind," she said simply. "The temple reveals itself differently to each person. Those who enter unprepared see only what they wish to see until it is too late." Nathan politely declined again. The elder shook her head and rejoined the ceremony. Later, in his borrowed hut, Nathan recorded the day's events, emphasizing the recurring themes in local legends: a temple that consumed, trees that whispered, ground that breathed. Typical animistic beliefs, he told himself, yet unusually consistent across generations. His satellite phone buzzed. Whitaker demanding an update. "I've secured a guide," Nathan reported. "We leave tomorrow." "Excellent. Daily reports, remember? The funding depends on it. The communication might be spotty once we— Daily, Dr. Cole, or the money stops." Nathan hung up, irritated by Whitaker's controlling nature. Outside, the ceremony continued, drums pulsing like a heartbeat. He unpacked the carved figure Pablo had given him, placing it beside his bed. In the dim light, the obsidian eyes seemed to follow his movements. Just a trick of the light, Nathan told himself. As he drifted toward sleep, the drums merged with his heartbeat. The figure's shadow on the wall seemed to elongate, stretching into an impossible shape. Nathan blinked, and it returned to normal. Beyond the village, the jungle waited in darkness. For a moment, Nathan could have sworn he heard it breathing. Machete in hand, Miguel slashed through the dense undergrowth, creating a path where none existed. They'd been trekking for 3 days, the jungle growing thicker, darker, more oppressive with each mile. Nathan followed close behind, his clothes soaked with sweat despite the canopy blocking much of the sun. "We're getting close," Nathan said, checking the GPS coordinates against his father's journal. "The temple should be within 5 miles of this position." Miguel paused, wiping his brow. "The jungle changes here. Look at the trees." Nathan glanced up, noticing the difference. The vegetation had subtly transformed. Species he couldn't identify, arrangements that seemed almost deliberate, as if the jungle had been cultivated centuries ago and then left to grow wild. "Good eye," Nathan admitted. "This suggests human influence." "Not human," Miguel corrected quietly. "The old ones." They pressed on until reaching a small clearing. Miguel refused to advance further without rest. As they set up camp, Nathan circled the perimeter, examining the vegetation. Something caught his eye, a glint of white against the dark earth. He knelt, brushing away leaves and soil, to reveal a stone fragment roughly the size of his hand. One side was smooth, the other carved with symbols similar to those in the codex, yet distinctly different. "Miguel," he called. "Come look at this." Miguel approached reluctantly, then froze several feet away. "I will not touch it." "It's just a stone tablet fragment," Nathan said, carefully lifting it. "It feels wrong," Miguel insisted. Nathan turned the fragment over in his hands. The symbols weren't Mayan, nor Olmec or Zapotec. They possessed elements of all three, yet predated them by centuries, according to his research. Excitement coursed through him. The first physical evidence supporting his theories, he photographed the fragment thoroughly, then used a soft brush to clean its surface. As twilight approached, he sat by their small fire, attempting to translate what he could. "We should turn back," Miguel said suddenly. "Find another way around." "We're close," Nathan replied, without looking up. "Why would we turn back now?" Miguel stared into the darkening jungle. "The birds have gone silent." Nathan paused, realizing Miguel was right. The constant chorus of birds and insects had ceased, leaving an unnatural quiet, broken only by the crackling fire. "Probably just a predator nearby," Nathan suggested. "Jaguar, maybe." Miguel shook his head. No jaguar silences the jungle like this. That night, Nathan dreamt he stood inside a massive temple, walls covered in symbols that moved like living things. He walked corridors that shifted behind him, following whispers in a language he somehow understood, despite never having heard it before. At the dream's center waited a stone altar, something pulsing upon it. He moved closer, reached out. Nathan awoke with a start, drenched in sweat. Dawn light filtered through the canopy. He was alone in the campsite. Standing, he discovered his boots were caked with mud, not from their campsite, but a different soil composition altogether. Looking down, he saw his own footprints leading from the jungle into camp. Somehow he'd walked in his sleep. "Miguel," he called. The guide emerged from the trees, eyes wide. "You were gone when I woke. I followed your tracks." He pointed to the footprints. "You walked 2 miles. In your sleep. That's impossible. I found you standing still, speaking words I did not understand," Miguel continued. "Your eyes were open but seeing nothing. When I touched your arm, you walked back as if guided." Nathan felt a chill despite the morning heat. "I have no memory of this." Miguel pointed to the stone fragment. "It started after you touched that." "That's superstition," Nathan insisted, though uncertainty crept into his voice. They packed in uneasy silence. As they prepared to leave, Nathan tried to contact Whitaker using the satellite phone. The signal meter showed full strength, yet all he received was static interspersed with what sounded like whispers. "The signal is being blocked," Nathan muttered, frustrated. "Not blocked," Miguel said. Answered. They pressed deeper into the jungle. Nathan noticed more stone fragments emerging from the vegetation, pieces of what must have once been structures. He documented everything meticulously, excitement overriding his unease. By mid-afternoon, the jungle thinned slightly. They crested a small rise, and Miguel suddenly stopped. "There," he said, pointing through a gap in the trees. Nathan moved beside him, following his gaze. His breath caught. Rising above the canopy in the near distance stood massive stone walls, partially covered by vegetation, but unmistakably monumental in scale. "The temple! His temple! We found it!" Nathan whispered, vindication washing through him like a drug. Miguel crossed himself. "No, Dr. Cole, it found us." The temple loomed before them, impossibly massive. Vegetation clung to its weathered surface, yet somehow the structure maintained a presence of deliberate power. Nathan stood transfixed at the base of the wide stone staircase that led to the entrance. "This architecture," he murmured. "It combines elements from multiple Mesoamerican styles, but predates them all." He ran his hand along a stone block larger than a car. "How did they move these?" "The engineering required." Miguel remained 20 paces back. "I will not go inside." Nathan barely heard him, already photographing the intricate carvings covering the facade. Some depicted human figures in poses of worship, others showed astronomical configurations. And interspersed among them were symbols matching the codex fragment. "These carvings," Nathan said, excitement overriding caution. "They're almost like a language. But look how they seem to change slightly depending on the angle." "Dr. Cole." Miguel's voice was firm. "I will make camp here. I will wait 3 days. If you do not return, I go back to the village." Nathan turned, finally registering his guide's fear. 3 days should be plenty. I just need to document the entrance chambers." Miguel shook his head. "Document from outside. Do not enter. Miguel, this discovery will change history. Whatever your grandfather told you, it is not story. The temple consumes. It changes those who enter." He began unpacking his gear. 3 days. Then I leave." Nathan sighed but didn't argue further. He continued examining the temple exterior, documenting everything. As he circled the base, he found a small alcove partially hidden by vines. Inside lay several small objects arranged in what appeared to be a recent offering. Among them, a jade figurine caught his eye, approximately 6 inches tall, depicting a humanoid figure with an unsettling feature. Its face was a perfect reflective surface, like a mirror. Nathan carefully lifted it, turning it to catch the light. "Remarkable craftsmanship," he muttered, noting how the mirrored face reflected his own. For a moment, he could have sworn the reflection smiled when he did not. He added the figurine to his pack, ignoring the twinge of guilt at removing it. This was too important for archaeological niceties. As afternoon faded toward evening, Nathan prepared for his first entry into the temple. Miguel watched silently as he assembled his equipment: lights, cameras, measuring tools, and recording devices. "I'll start with just the entrance chamber," Nathan assured him. 2 hours, no more," Miguel nodded grimly. "When inside, if you hear whispers, do not answer." Nathan smiled tightly. "I'll keep that in mind." The entrance was a massive stone doorway, remarkably free of debris despite centuries of abandonment. Nathan switched on his headlamp and stepped across the threshold, feeling a subtle change in air pressure as he entered. The entrance chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows beyond his light's reach. The walls were covered in carvings similar to those outside, but here they seemed more elaborate, almost organic in their flowing designs. "Hello?" he called, his voice echoing strangely. The acoustics were unusual. His echo returned slightly altered, as if additional syllables had been added. Nathan set up recording equipment, placing motion sensors and cameras at key positions. Standard procedure to document any movement or changes in environmental conditions during his absence. As he worked, he noticed the carvings more clearly. They depicted human figures entering the temple normal, but exiting transformed, elongated, with mirror-like faces similar to the jade figurine. "Ritual transformation," he muttered into his recorder, "possibly representing spiritual enlightenment or social elevation after temple ceremonies." He moved deeper, finding a large ceremonial chamber with an arrangement of stone platforms around a central space. The walls here were different, smoother, almost polished in places. As he shone his light across their surface, he could have sworn the beam reflected differently than it should, bending slightly. The composition of the stone appears to contain unusual reflective properties, he noted aloud. Something shifted in his peripheral vision. Nathan spun around, light scanning the empty chamber. "Hello?" he called again. No answer, but the echo returned with distinct whispers underneath his own voice. Nathan checked his watch. He'd been inside nearly 3 hours, longer than intended. Best to return to camp, analyze his findings, and continue tomorrow. As he made his way back toward the entrance, a rhythmic sound stopped him. Soft, like distant drums or a heartbeat. He followed the sound to a wall that appeared solid, but vibrated slightly under his palm. "Hidden chamber," he whispered. The sound immediately ceased. Outside, night had fallen. Miguel had built a small fire, but looked relieved when Nathan emerged. "You heard them," Miguel stated, not a question. "Heard what?" Nathan asked, though he knew exactly what Miguel meant. "The whispers." The heartbeat of the temple. Nathan began reviewing his footage instead of answering. To his frustration, the video showed only static. The audio nothing but white noise interrupted by faint, indecipherable murmuring. "Equipment malfunction," he muttered, though every device had been in perfect working order. That night, as Miguel slept, Nathan examined the jade figurine by firelight. Its mirrored face caught the flames, reflecting not Nathan's features, but what appeared to be the inside of the temple. Chambers he hadn't yet explored. Just a trick of the light, he told himself, though he carefully wrapped the figurine and placed it at the bottom of his pack. Suddenly uncomfortable with its watching face, dawn broke with unsettling silence. Nathan emerged from his tent to find Miguel's camp abandoned. A note weighted by a stone sat where the guide had slept. "The temple speaks your name in the night. I cannot stay. Payment enough." Nathan crumpled the note, frustration mingling with unease. He was alone now, but the discovery was too important to abandon. He unpacked his most sophisticated piece of equipment, a compact thermal imaging camera borrowed from Elena's department. If conventional cameras failed in the temple, perhaps this would capture what his eyes couldn't perceive. He set up a base camp directly outside the temple entrance, methodically organizing his supplies. Without Miguel to help carry equipment, he'd need to work more efficiently. making several trips instead of one comprehensive exploration. The thermal camera felt reassuringly solid in his hands, the latest model, capable of detecting minute temperature variations and recording them for later analysis. Nathan programmed it to take continuous readings at 5-second intervals, then mounted it on a small tripod just inside the temple entrance. Aimed at the main chamber, day 2 of exploration, he spoke into his audio recorder. Guide has departed due to superstitious concerns, beginning systematic documentation of the main ceremonial space. The entrance seemed different today, though Nathan couldn't identify exactly how. The carvings appeared to have shifted subtly, though he dismissed this as a trick of the morning light versus yesterday's afternoon shadows. As he ventured deeper, the temperature dropped noticeably. Nathan checked his thermometer, a 10-degree drop within 20 paces, with no apparent cause. He made a note, continuing inward with measured steps. The central chamber opened before him, like the nave of a cathedral. Sunlight penetrated through small, strategically placed openings in the ceiling, illuminating different sections of the floor in a pattern that would likely change with the sun's position. An astronomical calendar, perhaps, or a ceremonial timekeeper. Nathan began measuring the chamber dimensions, creating a precise floor plan. The room was perfectly proportioned, too perfectly. The measurements formed ratios matching the golden mean, the Fibonacci sequence, and other mathematical constants that wouldn't be discovered by Western civilization for thousands of years after this temple's construction. The builders possessed advanced mathematical knowledge, he murmured into his recorder, possibly indicating a complete understanding of principles we consider relatively modern discoveries. A sudden movement caught his eye, something small darting along the wall. Nathan turned quickly but saw nothing. He approached the wall carefully, running his hand along the smooth stone. It felt warm despite the cool air, almost like living tissue. The thermal camera should have caught whatever moved. Nathan retrieved it from the entrance, reviewing the footage. What he saw made little sense. Orbs of heat, moving through the seemingly empty chamber, following patterns too deliberate to be random. More disturbing were the cold spots shaped like human silhouettes, standing in corners where no one stood. Equipment malfunction, Nathan muttered, though he didn't believe it. He reset the camera and placed it centrally in the chamber. Midday sun now illuminated a previously shadowed doorway. Nathan followed it into a narrow corridor that twisted deeper into the temple. The passage walls were covered with carvings different from those in the main chamber. These depicted celestial bodies, star configurations in arrangements that looked oddly familiar. The corridor opened into a smaller chamber dominated by a circular design on the floor. Nathan recognized it immediately as a star map, but not of constellations visible from Earth, at least not in the current epoch. Impossible, he breathed, kneeling to examine the map more closely. The arrangement depicted star systems that wouldn't be discovered until the advent of radio telescopes in the 20th century, including what appeared to be a pulsar map, giving coordinates to distant galaxies. Nathan's rational mind struggled for explanation. Perhaps the ancients had observed different celestial phenomena and created abstract representations, coincidentally resembling modern astronomical discoveries. Perhaps a sound interrupted his thoughts, a distinct click, followed by mechanical whirring. The thermal camera he'd left in the main chamber. Nathan hurried back to find the camera active, slowly panning across the room, though he'd set it to remain stationary. He approached cautiously and found the tripod head moving gradually, as if someone were manually adjusting it. He snatched up the camera, immediately checking the recording. The footage showed the empty chamber until a heat signature appeared directly in front of the lens, a hand-shaped warmth reaching for the camera itself. Nathan nearly dropped the device. He looked around the empty chamber, sudden sweat cooling on his skin despite the chill. "Is someone here?" he called, voice steady despite his racing heart. His words echoed, returning with that same strange alteration, additional syllables underneath his own. The temple remained silent, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. Deciding he had enough data for one day, he retreated to his camp outside. Thermal camera clutched tightly. That evening, reviewing the day's footage, Nathan discovered something that sent ice through his veins. In frames captured while the camera moved independently, a face appeared, a heat signature floating without a body. A face that, despite the thermal distortion, was unmistakably his own. Nathan's third day at the temple began with a splitting headache and the realization he'd barely eaten since Miguel's departure. He forced down an energy bar and 2 painkillers, studying his gaunt reflection in a small mirror. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His normally trimmed beard had grown ragged. Scientific excitement had overridden basic self-care. "Get it together, Cole," he muttered. 3 days of exploration had yielded incredible findings, but his documentation was becoming increasingly disjointed. Reviewing yesterday's notes, he found portions written in a script he didn't recognize, yet somehow understood when he focused on it. The temple called to him with increasing urgency. Each chamber revealed led to more profound discoveries, each finding more impossible than the last. Today he would venture deeper toward what he suspected was a central ceremonial space. The corridor he followed twisted downward in a precise logarithmic spiral. The walls here were different, smoother, with a faint iridescence when his light struck them at certain angles. The air grew warmer, humid with an organic scent reminiscent of petrichor, rain on soil, though he was deep underground now. The passage opened into a circular chamber significantly warmer than the rest of the temple. At its center stood a raised stone platform, and upon it a bowl carved from dark polished stone. The bowl's surface was etched with the now familiar symbols, their patterns radiating outward like ripples in water. Nathan approached cautiously. The bowl appeared ceremonial, likely used for offerings or ritual purifications. What caught his attention, however, was the substance within, a dark residue coating the interior. He photographed the bowl from multiple angles before donning latex gloves to examine it more closely. The residue was reddish-brown, flaking in places but still remarkably preserved. Nathan carefully scraped a small sample into a collection vial. Basic field testing suggested what he already suspected: blood. Human blood, preserved somehow despite centuries, perhaps millennia, of abandonment. "Ceremonial blood offering," he recorded, his voice echoing strangely. Exceptional preservation indicates unique environmental conditions or unknown preservation method. As he spoke, the residue in the bowl seemed to glisten, becoming momentarily more liquid before his eyes. Nathan blinked, and it returned to its dried state. A trick of the light, surely. He placed the bowl back on the platform, then nearly dropped it when the stone beneath his feet vibrated subtly, like a distant bass note felt rather than heard. Stepping back, Nathan watched in disbelief as the dried blood in the bowl liquefied completely, becoming a small pool of crimson as fresh as if newly spilled. "Impossible," he whispered, the word strange in his mouth, as if spoken by someone else. The chamber around him shifted, not physically but perceptually. For an instant, Nathan saw it as it once was, illuminated by flame light, filled with figures in ceremonial dress, chanting in that language he somehow understood. At the center, the bowl brimming with fresh sacrifice, accepted by gods whose names were lost to time. Then reality reasserted itself. The vision gone, but the blood remained liquid, gently rippling as if disturbed by his breathing. Nathan's scientific mind raced for explanations. A chemical reaction triggered by oils from his hands? Some property of the stone activating the desiccated material? Nothing made sense. He found himself reaching toward the liquid, drawn by incomprehensible impulse. His fingertips nearly touched the surface when a sudden sound, like stone grinding against stone, broke his trance. Nathan jerked his hand back, horrified by his lapse in protocol and judgment. He had nearly contaminated the sample, nearly touched what could be a biohazard. What was happening to him? The grinding sound continued. Nathan turned to find a section of wall sliding open, revealing a passage that hadn't existed moments before. The blood in the bowl rippled more vigorously, as if boiling without heat. Rational thought warred with overwhelming curiosity. This was beyond archaeology, beyond science as he understood it. Yet the discovery compelled him forward, into the newly revealed corridor. This passage descended more sharply. The walls here carved with scenes of transformation, human figures entering the temple normal, emerging changed. Not allegorical as he'd first interpreted, but literal. The carvings showed humans physically altered, their faces becoming reflective, bodies elongated, merging somehow with the temple itself. The passage ended at a chamber larger than any he'd yet discovered. Multiple levels descended like an amphitheater toward a central dais. And on that platform stood an altar of the same dark stone as the bowl. Nathan's recorder captured his whisper. Central ceremonial chamber located. Architecture suggests mass participation in ritual activities. Purpose appears to be transformation of subjects through ceremonial bloodletting, and his voice trailed off as he noticed a carving on the altar. Not ancient, but new, freshly cut into the stone. A perfect rendering of his own face, eyes closed as if in sleep or death. Above the altar, a single shaft of light penetrated from some impossibly distant surface opening. As Nathan watched, the beam shifted with the sun's movement, creeping inexorably toward the carved likeness of his face. He backed away, sudden terror overwhelming scientific curiosity. This was wrong, all wrong. The temple wasn't just a structure. It was something else entirely. For the first time since his arrival, Nathan Cole ran, fleeing back towards sunlight and sanity. The sound of stone grinding against stone, following close behind. Nathan burst from the temple entrance, gasping in the humid jungle air. The sun was setting. He'd been inside far longer than intended. His hands trembled as he fumbled with his satellite phone, desperate to contact someone, anyone. Static answered his call, punctuated by whispers in that same unknown language. He hurled the phone down in frustration, then froze at the sound of movement in the underbrush. "Miguel?" he called, hopefully, reaching for his machete. "Nathan, my God, what happened to you?" The voice was familiar but unexpected. Elena Rodriguez emerged from the jungle path, dropping her pack when she saw his condition. "Elena?" Nathan stared in disbelief. "How did you stopped reporting in?" "Whitaker was furious, but I was worried." She approached cautiously. "You look terrible. How long since you've eaten properly? Slept?" Nathan ran a hand through his matted hair. "I'm fine." "The discoveries here, Elena, they're beyond anything we imagined. This civilization had knowledge they couldn't possibly have possessed. Mathematical constants, astronomical data—" "Nathan," she interrupted, "you're not making sense. Let's get you sitting down hydrated." She guided him to his camp, efficiently unpacking food and water. As Nathan drank, Elena surveyed the temple entrance with professional interest. "It's remarkable," she admitted. "The construction methodology alone would revolutionize our understanding of pre-Columbian architecture." "It's more than architecture," Nathan said, his voice steadier. "The temple, it responds, changes. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Elena prompted when he fell silent. Nathan hesitated. How could he explain what he'd experienced without sounding deranged? The moving carvings, the liquefied blood, his face on the altar. She'd think he'd lost his mind. "Let me show you something," he said instead. He retrieved his laptop, opening files of his findings. "This chamber I discovered yesterday. Look at the ceiling." Elena studied the images, her skepticism giving way to wonder. "This is a star map, not just any star map. Those are pulsar formations only discovered by radio astronomy in the last century. And these measurements, the temple dimensions, encode mathematical constants to a precision impossible without advanced instruments." Eleanor zoomed in on a particular section. "What's this?" The image showed a circular chamber with a massive disc embedded in the floor. The disc appeared to be carved from a single piece of black stone, its surface etched with concentric circles and radiating lines forming a complex pattern. "I call it the Celestial Directory," Nathan explained. It's unlike anything in the archaeological record. The disk maps stellar objects invisible to the naked eye, including what appear to be exoplanets discovered in just the last decade. Eleanor's eyes widened. That's impossible. I know. Yet there it is. Nathan leaned forward. Elena, this temple shouldn't exist. The knowledge encoded in its construction predates modern astronomy, advanced mathematics, even our understanding of physics. Elena studied him with concern. You need rest. Tomorrow we'll document everything properly, with scientific rigor. No more solo explorations. Nathan nodded, suddenly exhausted. As Elena prepared a proper meal, he found himself drifting, the temple's whispers following him into uneasy sleep. He awoke before dawn to find Elena already up, reviewing his notes by lantern light. These sections, she said without preamble, they're not in your handwriting. Nathan looked at the pages, strange symbols interspersed with his familiar script. I must have been more tired than I thought. Nathan, these match symbols I've been translating from sites thousands of miles from here. Yet here they are in your field notes, written in your hand. A chill ran through him. What do they say? It's fragmented, but recurring phrases about vessels waiting to be filled and the awakening of those who sleep in stone. She looked up at him. What's happening here? Before he could answer, the ground trembled slightly. They both turned toward the temple, where a warm glow now emanated from the entrance. That's impossible, Nathan whispered. There's no electricity, no light source inside. Elena stood, professional curiosity overcoming caution. We should investigate. Together, the temple's interior was transformed. Symbols along the walls glowed with faint bioluminescence, illuminating their path. Nathan led Elena through corridors that seemed to have rearranged themselves, eventually reaching the celestial disk chamber. The massive stone disk now hummed with energy, its surface rippling like liquid, though it remained solid to the touch. As they watched, the star patterns shifted, reconfiguring to show different celestial alignments. It's showing the night sky as it appeared when the temple was built. Elena breathed. And now, this is the sky millennia earlier. And now the future. It's cycling through time. Nathan placed his hand near the disk, feeling heat radiating from the stone. The temple isn't just an observatory. I think it's a communication device, designed to reach across vast distances, perhaps even across time. Communicate with what? Elena asked. Before Nathan could answer, the disk's pattern settled into a configuration neither recognized. The star map now showed a system with 7 planets orbiting a red dwarf star. That's the TRAPPIST-1 system, Elena said. Discovered in 2016. Nathan, how could ancient builders know about this? Unless they weren't from here, Nathan said quietly. Elena stared at him. You're suggesting... I don't know what I'm suggesting, he admitted. But the evidence doesn't fit any conventional archaeological theory. The disk's surface rippled again, and a new pattern emerged, one that perfectly matched the neural pathways of the human brain. Elena stared at the neural pathway pattern on the disk, professional skepticism battling with the evidence before her eyes. This can't be coincidence. There's more, Nathan said, leading her deeper into the temple's labyrinth. The passages seemed different with Elena present, more stable, less shifting, though Nathan couldn't determine if the change was in the temple or in his perception. They reached a small chamber Nathan hadn't encountered before. At its center stood a pedestal of polished stone, and upon it a small object that caught the bioluminescent light. I haven't seen this room before, Nathan admitted, approaching cautiously. The object was roughly the size of a tennis ball, carved from clear quartz crystal into a vaguely skull-like shape. Its craftsmanship was exquisite, with impossibly fine detail in its features. A crystal skull, Elena murmured, but not like those fraudulent Victorian creations. Don't touch it, Nathan warned, remembering the Blood Bowl incident. Too late. Elena had lifted the crystal skull for closer examination. As her fingers closed around it, the quartz began to vibrate, emitting a low-frequency hum that they felt rather than heard. Elena gasped but didn't drop it. "It's warm," she said, "and the vibration, it's structured like a pattern." Nathan checked his equipment. "The frequency is fluctuating between 7 and 14 hertz. Human brain waves," Elena realized. "Alpha and beta frequencies." The skull's vibrations intensified, and suddenly both archaeologists staggered as images flooded their minds. Not visions exactly, but information transmitted directly into their consciousness. Mathematical equations, star charts, molecular structures, and concepts without English names cascaded through their thoughts. Elena managed to place the skull back on its pedestal, breaking the connection. They both slumped against the wall, overwhelmed. "What just happened?" she whispered. Nathan rubbed his temples. "It transmitted information, like a storage device." His voice sounded strange to his own ears, tinged with that language he shouldn't know. "Nathan, your nose is bleeding." He wiped away the blood, suddenly aware of how the walls around them pulsed slightly. "Like breathing lungs? We should document this properly," Elena said, falling back on scientific protocol as a defense against the inexplicable. She began photographing the skull from multiple angles. "The temple was designed as a vessel," Nathan said, the words coming from somewhere beyond his conscious mind. "Built to facilitate communication between what?" Elena prompted when he trailed off. Nathan shook his head, the thoughts slipping away. "I found texts in another chamber. Ancient documentation describing the temple's purpose. They spent hours in methodical documentation." Elena's presence somehow anchoring Nathan's increasingly scattered thoughts. She approached each discovery with rigorous scientific methodology, creating a framework that helped him organize his experiences. "These carvings," Elena said, "studying a wall of hieroglyphs, they're describing a preparation process. Initiates would enter the temple normal, undergo rituals and exit, changed, transformed," Nathan corrected. "Not symbolically, physically." Elena frowned. "That's not possible. Look at this." Nathan directed her to a section he'd translated earlier. "It describes the temple as a bridge between vessels and humans, as suitable carriers for those who exist between dimensions. A metaphorical description of spiritual possession," Elena suggested. Nathan touched the wall, feeling that same warmth, that same sense of tissue rather than stone. "I don't think it's metaphorical." As daylight faded outside, they returned to camp to analyze their findings. Elena organized their notes while Nathan prepared a meal, his first proper food in days. The routine tasks helped clear his mind, though the temple's whispers remained at the edges of his consciousness. "I've been cross-referencing these symbols with known archaeological records," Elena said. "There are similarities with Mayan, Olmec, and even Sumerian writings, but they predate them all. It's as if this language was the source from which others derived, or it mimics them to be understandable to human minds," Nathan suggested. "Adaptive communication," Elena studied him. "You're different, Nathan. The way you speak about the temple. It's like you're connected to it somehow." "I've been here longer," he deflected. "More exposure to the environment. Is that all it is?" Elena reached for her bag, retrieving a small mirror. "Look at yourself." Nathan reluctantly took the mirror. His reflection showed the expected exhaustion, the unkempt beard, but his eyes, they'd changed. The irises contained faint geometric patterns that shifted as he moved, catching the firelight like facets in crystal. "What's happening to me?" he whispered. "I don't know," Elena admitted. "But I think we should leave, bring back a proper team. This is beyond either of us." "No!" The vehemence in Nathan's voice surprised them both. More controlled, he continued, "We can't leave, not yet. The discoveries we've made will rewrite human history. And there's more to find. I can feel it." Elena's expression darkened with concern. "That's what worries me. You shouldn't be able to feel an archaeological site." "Nathan, be honest. Is the temple influencing you somehow?" Before he could answer, a distant mechanical sound broke the jungle silence, helicopter rotors approaching from the east. "Whitaker," Nathan realized. "He's coming to claim his investment." The helicopter descended into a small clearing 300 yards from the temple, downdraft bending the jungle canopy. James Whittaker emerged first, immaculate in expedition gear that had clearly never seen actual fieldwork. He was followed by 4 men, 2 carrying equipment cases, 2 with holstered sidearms. Security contractors, Elena murmured. Why would he bring armed men to an archaeological site? Nathan didn't answer, watching Whittaker survey his surroundings with the calculating gaze of someone assessing an investment property. Dr. Cole, Whittaker called, spotting them at the camp's edge. I see you found your temple after all. His smile didn't reach his eyes. And Dr. Rodriguez, what a surprise! Elena stepped forward professionally. Mr. Whittaker, this site requires proper archaeological protocols. Any removal of artifacts would be premature and potentially destructive to— I funded this expedition, Whittaker interrupted smoothly, which makes any findings contractually mine to determine how best to document and preserve. He turned to Nathan. Your report stopped. I was concerned about my investment. Communications failed, Nathan replied, not mentioning the whispers that had replaced the satellite signal. Well, I'm here now. Whittaker gestured to his team. Dr. Chambers is an expert in carbon dating and material analysis. Mr. Reeves handles photogrammetry and 3D mapping. The others ensure our safety in this remote location. Armed security for an archaeological expedition. Elena questioned. Cartels use these jungles, Dr. Rodriguez. Better safe than sorry. Whittaker turned toward the temple, eyes widening slightly. Magnificent. Larger than I anticipated. It's not ready for a full team, Nathan said, surprising himself with the protective tone in his voice. Whittaker laughed. Ready? It's been standing for thousands of years. I think it can handle a few visitors. The team established their own camp with military efficiency, unpacking equipment that far surpassed Nathan's modest tools. Dr. Chambers, a thin man with perpetually furrowed brows, immediately began preparing sample collection kits. I'd like to see inside before dark, Whittaker announced. Less a request than a command. With reluctance, Nathan led Whittaker and Chambers to the temple entrance, leaving Eleanor with Reeves and the security team. As they approached the massive doorway, Nathan noticed the temple's subtle response. The bioluminescent symbols dimmed, as if the structure were concealing itself. Remarkable preservation, Chambers noted, running gloved fingers over the entrance carvings. These pigments should have degraded centuries ago. Inside, the temple felt different, colder, more static, its earlier fluid nature hardened into ordinary stone. Nathan watched Whittaker closely, wondering if the collector could sense the change. But Whittaker merely examined the architecture with the eye of a connoisseur assessing value. These carvings alone would command 7 figures at auction, he murmured, then caught Nathan's disapproving look. Hypothetically speaking, of course. I'm merely considering their historical significance. They proceeded to the main ceremonial chamber, where Whittaker's composure finally cracked. He stood transfixed before the wall of transformation carvings, his breath quickening. My God, he whispered. It's true. What's true? Nathan asked, suspicion rising. Whittaker collected himself. The legends. This temple was rumored to contain knowledge beyond typical pre-Columbian understanding. He turned to Chambers. Take samples from these walls. I want complete analysis. We haven't properly documented this chamber, Nathan objected. That's what Reeves is for, Whittaker dismissed. His equipment can create a perfect digital replica. Chambers approached the wall with sampling tools. As he pressed a coring device against the stone, the temple responded. The entire chamber dropping several degrees in temperature, the stones groaning like stressed metal. Did you feel that? Nathan asked. Both men ignored him. Chambers focused on extracting a small cylinder of stone, Whittaker watching hungrily. As they moved deeper into the temple, Nathan led them to a chamber he hadn't shown. Elena, a small room off the main corridor where he'd discovered an artifact he'd kept. Secret even from her. Set into an alcove was a mirror-like panel made of polished obsidian, its surface darker than seemed possible, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The frame bore inscriptions warning of those who watch from within. Remarkable, Whitaker breathed, approaching the obsidian mirror. Olmec mirrors were much smaller, usually handheld. It's not Olmec, Nathan said, and I wouldn't touch it, too late. Whitaker had placed his palm against the surface. Nothing happened, superstitious Dr. Cole. Whitaker smirked. I expected better from a scientist. Nathan frowned. The mirror had responded dramatically when he discovered it, showing reflections that moved independently of him. Now it remained inert, as if dormant. We should rejoin the others, he suggested, increasingly uneasy with Whitaker's presence. Outside, they found Elena in heated discussion with Reeves about proper documentation procedures. The tension eased slightly as they approached. Find anything interesting? Elena asked, studying Nathan's expression. Nothing responsive, Nathan replied meaningfully. She caught his emphasis, nodding slightly. That night, Whitaker's team transformed the campsite with portable lighting, computer equipment, and modern amenities. While the others prepared dinner, Nathan pulled Elena aside. The temple's different, he whispered. It's hiding itself. Hiding? Nathan, it's a structure, not a... I know how it sounds, he interrupted. But I've been here longer. I've seen how it responds. With Whitaker's team, it's gone dormant. Elena studied him, concern evident. Maybe that's good. We can step back, approach this scientifically. You don't understand, Nathan insisted. The temple chose us, chose me, to reveal itself. These people are intruders. Before Elena could respond, a shout came from one of the security men monitoring the perimeter. Everyone turned to see the obsidian mirror Nathan had shown Whitaker, now somehow outside the temple, propped against a tree at the edge of the firelight. How did that get there? Whitaker demanded. No one answered, all staring at the mirror's surface, which no longer reflected the jungle night, but showed a scene none of them recognized, a chamber deeper in the temple that pulsed with soft light. Calling them forward, no one slept well that night. The obsidian mirror had been carefully moved to Whitaker's tent for security reasons, though Nathan suspected the real motive was to keep the artifact from Elena's documentation efforts. Dawn brought increased activity. Whitaker's team worked with corporate efficiency, mapping the temple exterior with laser scanners, while Chambers collected samples from the outer walls. Nathan watched with growing unease as they treated the site like a resource to be harvested, rather than a mystery to be understood. We need to establish clear protocols, Elena argued with Whitaker. This site contains information that could revolutionize our understanding of human history. I couldn't agree more, Whitaker replied smoothly. That's precisely why I brought state-of-the-art equipment. We'll document everything before any decisions are made about artifact removal. Nathan knew this was a lie. He'd overheard Whitaker instructing Chambers to prioritize identifying the most valuable items for secure transport. By mid-morning, tension had evolved into a silent power struggle. Elena insisted on accompanying each team member into the temple, documenting their activities. Nathan, meanwhile, found himself drawn to sections of the temple that had previously been inaccessible. During a moment when the others were occupied, Nathan slipped away, following an instinct that pulled him toward the temple's eastern wing. Here the corridors felt warmer, more alive than they had since Whitaker's arrival. The walls pulsed faintly under his palm, responding to his touch in a way they didn't for others. He discovered a narrow passageway he was certain hadn't existed before, leading to a small, hexagonal chamber. At its center stood a pedestal supporting what appeared to be a chunk of ordinary stone, gray, roughly textured, unremarkable except for its perfect cube shape. Nathan approached cautiously, recorder in hand. New chamber discovered, eastern wing. Contains single artifact, stone cube approximately 20 centimeters on each side. No visible markings, or... He stopped as he drew closer. The stone wasn't static, but subtly moving, its surface rippling like liquid while maintaining solid form. More disturbing, it radiated heat, not the ambient warmth of sun-baked stone, but the heat of living tissue. Compelled by an impulse he couldn't name, Nathan reached toward it. His fingers hovered inches away when a voice spoke behind him. I wouldn't touch that if I were you. Nathan turned to find Chambers standing in the doorway, eyes fixed on the stone. "How did you find this chamber?" Nathan asked. "Followed you," Chambers admitted. "Whitaker wants to know what you're really finding here." He stepped forward, scientific curiosity overriding caution. "What is it?" "I'm not sure," Nathan replied honestly. "Some kind of living stone," Chambers scoffed. "Stone isn't alive, Dr. Cole. Look closer." The scientist approached, producing a small magnifying lens. As he studied the stone's surface, his skepticism gave way to fascination. The molecular structure appears to be in constant motion, almost like cellular activity. "Impossible, right?" Nathan said. "Like everything else in this temple." Chambers reached into his pack for sample collection tools. "Whitaker needs to see this." "I don't think sampling is wise," Nathan warned. But Chambers had already extended a probe to the stone's surface. The moment contact was made, the stone pulsed violently. Chambers screamed, dropping the probe, but not before Nathan saw the metal tool partially absorbed into the stone's surface. More alarming, Chambers' hand where he'd held the probe was changing, the skin taking on the same grayish texture as the stone, spreading slowly up his wrist. "What's happening?" Chambers cried, clutching his transforming hand. Before Nathan could respond, Whitaker appeared with one of his security men, drawn by the scientist's screams. "What have you done?" Whitaker demanded, staring at Chambers' stone-textured hand. "The artifact, it's reactive," Nathan tried to explain. But Whitaker was already ordering his security man to help Chambers back to camp. Left alone with Nathan, Whitaker's demeanor changed. "You knew this would happen." "I warned him not to touch it," Nathan said defensively. Whitaker studied the living stone with disturbing intensity. The legends were true. This temple contains objects that can transform matter, perhaps even human tissue. His eyes gleamed with an ambition that had nothing to do with archaeology. "Do you understand what this technology could be worth?" "It's not technology," Nathan argued. "It's something else entirely. Something alive, semantics," Whitaker dismissed, producing a specialized container from his pack. "Whatever it is, it's coming with us." "You can't remove it," Nathan protested. "We don't understand it. Look what it did to Chambers, a minor setback. With proper study, we can control it." Whitaker's voice hardened. "Remember our contract, Dr. Cole. All discoveries belong to me." Back at camp, Chambers' condition was deteriorating rapidly. The stone texture had spread past his elbow, his arm becoming rigid and immobile. Elena was attempting to treat him, but conventional medicine was useless against this transformation. "His cellular structure is being rewritten," she told Nathan privately. "I've never seen anything like it. It's as if the stone is converting his tissue to match its own composition." Whitaker remained coldly analytical, recording Chambers' transformation while keeping the living stone sample secured in a reinforced container. The obsidian mirror sat nearby, its surface now showing not reflections, but scenes from inside the temple, chambers they hadn't yet explored. "We should evacuate him," Eleanor insisted. "Get him to a hospital. And tell them what?" Whitaker countered. "That he touched a magic rock. They'd learn nothing that we can't document here." As night fell, Chambers' transformation accelerated. His entire arm was now stone-like, and veins of grey had begun spreading across his chest. More disturbing, his eyes had developed the same shifting patterns Nathan had seen in his own reflection. "He's becoming part of it," Nathan whispered to Eleanor. "The temple is claiming him." For the first time since her arrival, Eleanor didn't dismiss Nathan's assessment as unscientific. "We need to leave this place," she said quietly. "All of us. Before it's too late," Whitaker overheard. "No one's leaving. This discovery is worth billions, matter transformation potentially controllable. The military applications alone." Nathan realized with growing horror that Whitaker had never been interested in archaeology. He'd been searching for exactly this, a power source beyond conventional science, something he could weaponize. That night, as the others finally slept, Nathan noticed something that chilled him to the core. The veins spreading across Chambers' chest weren't random. They formed patterns identical to the temple's wall carvings, and they were spreading inch by inch toward his heart. Chambers died shortly before dawn. The transformation had reached his heart, replacing living tissue with stone that somehow continued to pulse with a rhythm not his own. His final words, spoken in that same unknown language Nathan sometimes found himself using, made no sense to the others, but resonated deeply within Nathan's changing mind. He said, "The vessel accepts me." Nathan translated without thinking. Elena stared at him. "How could you possibly know that?" Nathan had no answer, at least none he could articulate. The temple's influence had progressed beyond mere fascination. Its knowledge had somehow merged with his consciousness, ancient symbols becoming as familiar as his native tongue. Whitaker ordered Chambers' body placed in a sealed container. The transformation might continue post-mortem. "We need to monitor every stage." His callousness shocked even his security team. Reeves, the mapping specialist, approached Nathan and Eleanor while Whitaker was occupied. "I didn't sign up for this," he confessed. "Mapping ruins is one thing. Whatever's happening here—" He glanced toward Chambers' container. "It isn't natural." Elena saw an opportunity. "Help us document everything properly." Whatever Whitaker plans to do with these artifacts, the scientific record needs to be preserved, Reeves agreed, though his eyes kept darting nervously toward the temple. As the morning progressed, an unspoken division formed in the camp. Whitaker and his security men on one side focused on extracting artifacts. Elena, Nathan, and Reeves on the other committed to documentation and, increasingly, to understanding the temple's true nature. Nathan found himself drawn again to the temple's depths. This time, Elena insisted on accompanying him, unwilling to let him venture alone in his increasingly altered state. His eyes now permanently displayed those subtle geometric patterns, and veins on his forearms had begun tracing designs reminiscent of the temple carvings. They slipped away, while Whitaker supervised the extraction of smaller artifacts from the temple's outer chambers. Nathan led Elena through passages that seemed to open specifically for him, eventually reaching a chamber he'd never seen before. Unlike the other rooms, with their monumental architecture, this space was small, intimate, almost womb-like. Its walls curved organically, covered not with carvings, but with a smooth, pearlescent substance that emitted soft light. At the center floated an object that defied physical laws, a perfectly transparent crystal, hovering unsupported in mid-air, slowly rotating. "What is it?" Elena whispered. "A memory crystal," Nathan replied, the knowledge surfacing from somewhere beyond his conscious mind. "It stores experiences." Elena approached cautiously, scientific training battling with instinctive fear. "How do you access the stored information?" Nathan stepped forward. "You touch it, after what happened to Chambers." Nathan, "No," but his fingers had already made contact. Instead of harm, Nathan experienced a flood of images, not imposed like the crystal skull's transmission, but unfolding like memories he'd forgotten until this moment. He saw his father entering this same temple decades earlier, experiencing the same gradual transformation. He watched William Cole discover chambers they hadn't yet found, translate texts they hadn't yet read, and finally make a terrible choice at the temple's heart. When Nathan withdrew his hand, he was trembling. "My father was here," he whispered. "The temple showed him the same things, changed him the same way." Elena hesitantly touched the crystal herself. Her experience was entirely different. Instead of Nathan's father, she saw images of ancient builders constructing the temple. Except they weren't building it in the conventional sense. They were growing it, cultivating it like a living organism, using methods that melded technology and biology in ways human science hadn't yet imagined. "They're still out there," she gasped, withdrawing her hand. "The builders, they didn't die out. They relocated, continuing their work elsewhere." Before they could process these revelations, footsteps approached. Whitaker had discovered their absence and followed. His eyes widened at the sight of the floating crystal. "Incredible," he breathed. "Anti-gravity technology. The applications are endless." It's not technology as we understand it, Elena tried to explain. The crystal stores memories, experiences, different for each person who touches it, Whitaker scoffed. Mystical nonsense. This is advanced physics, nothing more. He reached for the crystal. I wouldn't, Nathan warned. But Whitaker ignored him. The moment his fingers touched the crystal's surface, Whitaker went rigid, eyes wide. And like Nathan and Elena's experiences, his contact with the crystal appeared painful, his face contorting as images flooded his mind. When he finally broke contact, Whitaker's demeanor had completely changed. Gone was the calculating businessman. In his place stood someone with new purpose, eyes gleaming with unsettling intensity. We need to accelerate the extraction, he announced. Everything of value must be removed by nightfall. What did you see? Nathan demanded. Whitaker smiled thinly. The truth. This temple isn't just a structure, it's a doorway. And on the other side waits something that will change humanity forever. He left them, already speaking into his radio, ordering his security team to prepare for priority extraction of selected artifacts. What just happened? Elena asked, staring after him. The temple showed him something, Nathan replied grimly. Something that aligned with his ambitions, or it influenced him, like it's influencing you. Nathan couldn't deny the possibility. As they followed Whitaker back toward the camp, he confided what the crystal had revealed about his father. He found the heart of the temple, a chamber at the very center. There was something there, something alive. The crystal didn't show what happened next, but I think he became part of it. Elena studied him with growing concern. Nathan, the patterns on your arms, your eyes, you're transforming just like Chambers. Whatever happened to your father might be happening to you. I know, he admitted. But it feels right, Elena, like I'm becoming what I was always meant to be. That's exactly what terrifies me, she whispered. Because that's not you talking, it's the temple. They emerged from the temple to find chaos. Whitaker had ordered his team to begin removing artifacts immediately, without proper documentation or preservation protocols. One of the security men was using a power saw to cut a small carved panel from the entrance wall, sending ancient stone dust into the air. "Stop!" Elena shouted, rushing toward them. "You're destroying irreplaceable history." Whitaker intercepted her. "History is written by those who control the future. Dr. Rodriguez, and what's inside this temple will give me exactly that." Nathan noticed Whitaker's eyes. They'd developed the same shifting patterns as his own, though subtly different, darker somehow. "The extraction continues," Whitaker ordered his men. "Focus on the items I marked. Ignore everything else." As Whitaker moved away, Eleanor turned to Nathan. "He's transforming too, but differently. Something's very wrong." "The temple affects everyone uniquely," Nathan explained, the knowledge surfacing from his altered consciousness. "It responds to intention, desire. My father came seeking knowledge, understanding. I followed the same path. Whitaker came for power. And Chambers?" He touched the temple without invitation. It consumed him. They watched helplessly as Whitaker's team continued their destructive extraction. Reeves approached them, visibly disturbed. "Whitaker's ordered us to focus on something in the central chamber," he told them quietly. "He calls it the heart, said it's the key to everything." Nathan felt ice in his veins. "The heart, the same chamber his father had discovered. We need to get there first," he told Elena. Night was falling as they slipped away from camp. Whitaker and his security team were focused on removing the artifacts they'd already collected, creating an opportunity for Nathan and Elena to return to the temple unnoticed. The structure felt different now, agitated, its subtle vibrations more pronounced, its bioluminescent markings pulsing rapidly like an elevated heartbeat. The passages rearranged themselves as they walked, guiding them inward toward the center. "It knows what's happening," Nathan murmured. "It's responding to the threat." They reached a corridor Nathan had never seen before, descending steeply into the earth. The walls here were different, smoother, more organic, visibly pulsing like the walls of a massive artery. The air grew warmer, humid with that same scent of petrichor. The corridor opened into a vast circular chamber, larger than any they'd yet discovered. At its center stood a raised platform, and upon that platform, something that defied comprehension, a human heart, massively enlarged to the size of a small car, beating slowly with visible pulses that sent waves of energy throughout the chamber. "Impossible," Elena whispered. Yet there it was, a heart that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, yet clearly did. Its surface was covered with the same symbols that adorned the temple walls, glowing with each powerful contraction. "My father found this," Nathan said, approaching slowly. "The crystal showed me." The heart's rhythm accelerated as he drew closer, as if recognizing him. Nathan felt an answering rhythm in his own chest, his transformed veins pulsing in sync with the massive organ. "Nathan, be careful," Elena warned, but he barely heard her. The heart was communicating with him, not in words but in concepts, images, emotions that flooded his consciousness. He understood now. The temple wasn't built by an ancient civilization. It had built itself. The temple was a physical extension of the heart, a vessel designed to house a consciousness that existed between dimensions. "It's been waiting," Nathan said. His voice altered, resonating with the chamber's acoustics. "Waiting for someone to complete the joining." "What joining?" Elena asked, though fear in her eyes suggested she already suspected. Before Nathan could answer, Whitaker's voice rang out from the chamber entrance. "The joining of human consciousness with whatever intelligence resides in that magnificent object." They turned to find Whitaker standing in the doorway, alone, but carrying a sophisticated metal case. His transformation had progressed rapidly, the patterns on his skin now clearly visible, crawling up his neck toward his face. "I've waited my entire life for something like this," Whitaker said, approaching the heart. "Do you understand what this means? Transcendence, evolution. Whoever joins with that heart will become something beyond human." "That's not what it wants," Nathan argued. "The temple doesn't exist to elevate humans. It uses them as vessels," Whitaker laughed. "And what higher purpose could there be? To become the vessel for something greater than ourselves." He opened his case, revealing a sleek device with sharp metallic probes. "The heart's tissue contains the secret, a biological technology we can extract, replicate. Imagine armies of transformed soldiers, workers who never tire, leaders with intelligence beyond human limitation." "You can't remove it," Nathan warned. "The heart is the temple. They're one organism. We'll see about that." Whitaker approached the platform, device in hand. The chamber responded immediately, the walls contracting violently, the heart's rhythm accelerating to a frantic pace. Nathan felt the change within his own transformed body, power surging through the veins that had become extensions of the temple itself. "Stop," he shouted. But Whitaker was beyond reason, eyes fixed on the heart with fanatical determination. As Whitaker raised his device toward the heart, Nathan felt something awaken within him. Knowledge, power, purpose that transcended his human limitations. The temple had prepared him for this moment, transforming him gradually into something capable of protecting its core. He raised his hand instinctively, and to his shock, the temple responded. A section of wall fluidly extending like a tentacle, wrapping around Whitaker's arm, stopping him inches from the heart. "What?" Whitaker gasped, struggling against the living stone. "How are you doing this?" "I'm not," Nathan realized. "We are." The stone tentacle tightened around Whitaker's arm, not crushing but immobilizing. His extraction device clattered to the floor as the temple's response intensified, the walls pulsing faster, the heart's rhythm accelerating, the entire chamber seeming to breathe around them. "Let me go," Whitaker demanded, his voice echoing strangely. "You don't understand what's at stake." Nathan felt the temple's intentions flowing through his transformed consciousness. It wasn't merely defending itself, it was evaluating, judging Whitaker's worthiness as a potential vessel, and finding him wanting. "The temple doesn't serve human ambition," Nathan said, the words coming from somewhere beyond his individual mind. "It exists to bridge worlds, Elena watched in horrified fascination as more of the wall liquefied, flowing like quicksilver to surround Whitaker. "Nathan, what's happening to you?" "Your voice." She was right. His voice had changed, deepened, acquired harmonics impossible for human vocal cords. The transformation was accelerating, triggered by his proximity to the heart. The stone flowed around Whitaker, not hurting him, but containing him within a chamber that grew from the floor, a perfect cube of the same living stone they'd found earlier. "A transition chamber," Nathan explained, knowledge surfacing from his altered mind, "where the boundaries between person and temple begin to dissolve. Through the translucent walls of his prison, they could see Whitaker struggling, raging, his own transformation progressing differently, darker, corrupted by his intentions. The veins spreading across his skin were black, not the luminescent blue of Nathan's changes. The temple is responding to his nature, Nathan told Elena. It won't destroy him, but it won't release him either. Not until it understands. Understands what? Elena asked, keeping her distance from both Nathan and the heart. His purpose, mine, yours. Nathan turned toward the massive beating heart. Why we're all here. The heart's rhythm changed again, slower now, more deliberate. Each beat sent waves of energy through the chamber that Nathan could not only feel but see. Ripples in reality itself, bending light, altering perception. "It's ready," he whispered. "Ready for what?" Elena's scientific mind struggled with the impossible reality before her. "Nathan, whatever you think is happening, this is a physical structure, not a sentient being." "It's both," Nathan explained. "The temple grew from this heart, which isn't human despite its appearance. It's a physical manifestation of something that normally exists outside our dimension." As if responding to his words, the heart's next beat sent out a wave that transformed the chamber. The walls became transparent, revealing the true extent of the temple's structure, a massive, organic framework extending in all directions, filled with chambers they hadn't discovered, passages that shifted and rearranged themselves continually. More shocking were the ghostly figures visible through the transparent walls, human shapes embedded within the stone, some ancient, some more recent. Among them, Nathan recognized his father's face, eyes closed as if in peaceful sleep. "My God," Eleanor breathed. "There are people in the walls." "Not exactly people anymore," Nathan said. "Vessels that have completed their transition." He approached the heart, drawn by an irresistible pull. The massive organ pulsed expectantly, its surface rippling as he drew near. Nathan understood now. He was meant to join with it, to become part of the temple's consciousness, as his father had before him. "Nathan, stop," Elena called. "Think about what you're doing." He turned to her, and Elena gasped at his appearance. The transformation had progressed dramatically. His eyes now glowed with the same light as the temple's markings, the veins on his neck and face fully tracing the patterns from the ancient carvings. "I have to do this," he said. "It's why I was drawn here, why my father came before me. The temple needs human consciousness to complete its purpose." "What purpose?" Elena demanded. "To establish communication between our dimension and theirs. To create a bridge," Nathan gestured to the heart. "This is just one node in a vast network spanning multiple worlds." In his prison of living stone, Whitaker had gone silent, watching with calculated intensity. The black veins had spread across his face, his eyes darkening to obsidian pools. "Don't listen to him, Dr. Rodriguez," Whitaker called, voice muffled through the stone. "Cole is delusional. Whatever's happening here, it's a natural phenomenon we can study, understand, control." Nathan shook his head. "You still don't understand. The temple doesn't want to be controlled. It wants to communicate. But communication requires a vessel capable of bridging human perception with its consciousness." "And you think that's you?" Elena asked, her voice softening with concern. "I know it is." Nathan's hand reached toward the heart. "I can feel it calling me, just as it called my father." Elena moved between Nathan and the heart, a final barrier of scientific rationality against incomprehensible transformation. "Your father disappeared, Nathan." "Is that what you want?" To disappear into this? She gestured at the heart, the walls, the ghostly figures embedded in living stone. What about your life? Your work, your daughter? The mention of Sophia sent a jolt through Nathan's altered consciousness. An image of his daughter flashed in his mind, her graduation, which he'd missed while chasing rumors of pre-Mayan artifacts. Her wedding invitation still unanswered on his desk. He hesitated, hand still outstretched toward the heart. I need to do this, Elena, for validation, for proof I was right. For my father. Your father made his choice, Elena said gently. This is yours. The heart's rhythm intensified, its call growing stronger. Nathan felt himself slipping deeper into the temple's consciousness, his individual identity blurring at the edges. Yet Sophia's face remained clear in his mind, an anchor to his humanity. There must be another way, he whispered, fighting the pull. A way to bridge understanding without losing myself. The chamber vibrated with tension as Nathan stood suspended between two futures, full integration with the temple or retention of his humanity. The heart's rhythm altered subtly, a pattern that seemed almost questioning. It's waiting, Nathan realized. For my decision. Elena maintained her position between Nathan and the heart. There has to be more information, something that explains all this. Her scientist's mind refused to accept mystical transformation without understanding. Nathan's altered consciousness reached out, connecting with the temple's awareness. Images flashed through his mind, chambers they hadn't explored, knowledge still undiscovered. There's more, he said suddenly. A repository of information. The complete record of the temple's purpose. Where? Elena asked. The western quadrant. A chamber we missed. Nathan turned, the temple responding to his thoughts by reconfiguring its passages, opening a direct route. Should we leave him? Elena nodded toward Whitaker, still trapped in his stone prison. He can't escape. The temple will hold him. They moved quickly through corridors that shifted to accommodate their passage. The temple felt different now, more responsive, almost eager, as if excited to reveal its secrets after centuries of waiting. They arrived at a chamber unlike any they'd seen before. Its walls were covered not with carvings, but with what appeared to be pages of a massive book, each page a thin sheet of an unknown material embedded in the walls. The complete codex, Nathan breathed. The full record. The pages glowed as they approached, responding to Nathan's transformed presence. Symbols shifted, rearranged themselves into patterns he could somehow read. What does it say? Elena asked. It's a history, not just of the temple, but of the network. Nathan ran his fingers over the pages, absorbing information directly through touch. This temple is one of many across different worlds, each housing a heart, each serving as a node in a vast communication system. Communication between what? Between dimensions. Between forms of consciousness so different they cannot interact directly. Nathan's voice took on that resonant quality again, as the temple's knowledge flowed through him. The hearts are translators, bridges that allow different realities to understand each other. As he spoke, the pages began to fill in empty sections that had appeared blank moments before. Nathan realized the temple was actively completing its own record, adding their story, his story, to its chronicles. The temple records everything, he explained. Every visitor, every discovery, every transformation. It's a living library. Elena studied the newly forming text. And what happens to those who join with it? Like your father? Nathan touched a section of the wall, and it transformed into images of those who had merged with the temple consciousness. He saw his father again, but not as a prisoner embedded in stone. Instead, William Cole appeared in a state of transcendent awareness. His consciousness expanded beyond human limitations. Experiencing realities Nathan could only glimpse, they become more than human, he whispered. Itiu Utediseyu. Not lost, but evolved. The codex pages shifted again, revealing the temple's true purpose, not consumption of human consciousness, but a mutual exchange. The temple offered expanded awareness, knowledge beyond human science. In return, it received the uniquely human capacity for innovation, adaptation, emotional understanding. It's symbiosis, Elena realized, her scientific mind finding a framework she could comprehend. A mutually beneficial relationship between different organisms. But the Codex revealed something else, a warning. The symbiosis required willing participation, complete acceptance. Those who sought to control the temple rather than join with it created a corrupted connection, a parasitic rather than symbiotic relationship. Whitaker, Nathan murmured. The temple is trying to contain the corruption his intention creates. As if summoned by his name, a distant sound echoed through the corridors, stone cracking, breaking apart. Whitaker had somehow begun to escape his prison. He's using the transformation against the temple, Nathan realized with horror, turning its nature against itself. The pages of the Codex flickered, showing a vision of potential futures. In one, the temple achieved its purpose, creating understanding between dimensions. In another, darker future, the temple's power was harnessed for human ambition, weaponized as Whitaker intended, leading to devastation beyond imagining. We have to stop him, Elena said, before he corrupts the heart itself. They raced back toward the central chamber, the temple accelerating their passage by rearranging itself around them. As they approached, they heard Whitaker's voice echoing strangely, speaking words in that ancient language, but distorted. Wrong somehow, they arrived to find Whitaker free of his prison, standing before the heart. His transformation had progressed horrifically, his body no longer fully human. The black veins had spread across his entire form. His limbs elongated and partially merged with fragments of the living stone he'd absorbed from his prison. "You're too late," he called, voice resonating with unnatural harmonics. "The temple's power responds to will, and my will is stronger than its own." The heart's rhythm had become erratic, its surface darkening where Whitaker had placed his transformed hands upon it. The corruption was spreading, the heart's healthy blue luminescence giving way to inky blackness. He's poisoning it, Nathan realized. If the corruption reaches the core, the entire temple will transform. Into what? Elena asked. Into a weapon. Nathan stepped forward, his own transformation giving him power he'd only begun to understand. The temple responds to intention. His intention is control, domination. Whitaker turned to them, his face barely recognizable, eyes now completely black. The next stage of human evolution, Dr. Cole, not communication, ascension. With the temple's power, humanity will transcend its limitations. That's not what it was created for, Nathan argued. You're corrupting its purpose. I'm improving it, Whitaker shouted. Why communicate with other dimensions when we can conquer them? The heart convulsed, its rhythm faltering as Whitaker's corruption spread deeper. Nathan felt the pain through his connection with the temple, a wound in reality itself. "Help me stop him," Nathan said to Elena, "before it's too late." Elena hesitated only a moment before nodding. "What do we do?" Nathan looked toward the heart, feeling its call more urgently now. "There's only one way. I have to complete my transformation, become the counterbalance to his corruption." "You'll be lost," Elena protested. "Not lost," Nathan corrected, his decision crystallizing. "Changed, but still myself. That's the difference between Whitaker and me. He wants to control. I'm willing to join." With that, Nathan stepped toward the heart, embracing the transformation he'd been resisting, accepting his role in the temple's grand design. As Nathan approached the heart, the temple responded dramatically. The floor beneath him liquefied, flowing upward to create a raised platform that lifted him to the same level as Whitaker, who stood on the opposite side of the pulsing organ. The two men faced each other across the heart, one embracing transformation, the other forcing corruption. "You don't have the conviction to do what's necessary," Whitaker sneered, his voice barely human now. "You've always been too cautious, too bound by ethics and rules, and you've never understood that some rules exist for a reason." Nathan replied. The blue luminescent patterns had spread across his entire body now, his transformation accelerating with his acceptance. Elena watched from below, documenting everything with scientific precision, despite the impossibility of what she witnessed. As the confrontation intensified, a previously hidden compartment in the chamber wall slid open, revealing an object that drew her attention. Inside lay what appeared to be a knife with a blade of impossible thinness, its edge seeming to disappear when viewed directly. The handle was carved from the same living stone as the temple walls, pulsing in rhythm with the heart. Inscriptions along its surface identified it in the temple's language. A quantum knife, Nathan said, without turning, somehow aware of what Elena had found. It can cut through dimensional barriers. What does that mean? Elena called, reaching for the artifact. It means it can sever the connection between the heart and whatever corrupts it, Nathan explained. Including Whitaker. Whitaker laughed, the sound distorted by his transformation. Or it could sever the heart from the temple entirely. Imagine that power, portable, controllable. The corruption continued spreading through the heart, black tendrils extending from where Whitaker's hands made contact. The temple shuddered around them, passages collapsing, walls cracking as the central consciousness that maintained its integrity began to fail. "Take the knife, Elena," Nathan instructed. "Bring it here." Elena lifted the knife carefully. Its weight shifted constantly, as if parts of it existed in different dimensions simultaneously. Approaching the confrontation, she felt reality waver around her, solid matter becoming permeable, time flowing unevenly. "Whatever you're planning, it's too late," Whitaker said. "The temple is adapting to my vision. Soon it will extend beyond this structure into the jungle, across the continent. Imagine a living weapon that can absorb and transform matter at will." "That's not its purpose," Nathan insisted, placing his hands on the heart opposite Whitaker's. Where they touched, the blue luminescence intensified, pushing back against the spreading corruption. "Purpose is determined by those with the vision to seize opportunity," Whitaker countered. "The builders created something they couldn't control." "I can." As Nathan maintained contact with the heart, his consciousness expanded further, connecting more deeply with the temple's awareness. He saw its true nature now, not merely a structure or organism, but a nexus where multiple realities overlapped, where communication between incomprehensibly different forms of consciousness became possible. "Elena," he called, "the knife. Use it at the exact point where Whitaker connects with the heart." Elena circled the platform cautiously, knife in hand. The blade seemed to cut through reality itself as she moved, leaving momentary rifts that sealed themselves seconds later. Whitaker sensed her approach and turned, one hand remaining on the heart. "Stay back," he warned, his free hand elongating into something weapon-like. Neither flesh nor stone, but something between. Nathan seized the moment of Whitaker's divided attention to plunge deeper into connection with the heart. His consciousness merged further with the temple's, giving him access to knowledge and abilities beyond human limitation. "The temple responds to intention," Nathan said, his voice now fully resonant with the chamber's acoustics. "Your intention corrupts. Mine harmonizes." With newfound awareness, Nathan reached out mentally, connecting with the temple's structure. Walls responded to his will, sections of floor rising to block Whitaker's extended weapon as it lashed toward Elena. "The knife, Elena! Now!" Elena lunged forward with scientific precision, driving the quantum knife directly into the junction where Whitaker's corrupted hand merged with the heart's tissue. The blade passed through seemingly solid matter as if it were air, creating a visible distortion in reality around the point of impact. Whitaker screamed, a sound that existed in multiple frequencies simultaneously. The connection between him and the heart severed, black corruption instantly contained at the cut point. "What have you done?" he gasped, staggering backward. "Excise the corruption," Nathan answered. Like cutting out a cancer, the heart pulsed powerfully, its rhythm stabilizing as the blackness receded. Whitaker collapsed to his knees, his transformation suddenly unstable. features shifting between human and something else entirely. "It's not over," he snarled. I absorbed enough power to continue the process myself. Indeed, Whitaker's body was changing again, the corruption turning inward, transforming him into something that existed partly in this dimension, partly in another. His form blurred at the edges, reality warping around him. He's becoming a dimensional rift, Nathan realized with horror. A tear in the fabric between worlds. Elena backed away, quantum knife still in hand. "Can we seal it?" "The knife," Nathan directed. "It can cut, but it can also repair." The temple created it for both purposes. As Whitaker's transformation accelerated, the danger grew. Through his expanded awareness, Nathan could sense catastrophic consequences if the rift fully formed, a cascade of dimensional instabilities that would spread outward, consuming everything. "Hurry," he urged Elena, "before the rift stabilizes." Elena approached Whitaker cautiously, quantum knife extended. Its blade shifted in response to the dimensional distortions, adapting to cut through the specific frequency of reality Whitaker now partially inhabited. "No." Whitaker reached toward her with a limb that existed in multiple places simultaneously. "This power is mine." Nathan acted instinctively, his partially merged consciousness allowing him to extend the temple's substance as a shield between Elena and Whitaker. The living stone intercepted Whitaker's attack, absorbing the blow. That moment of protection gave Elena the opening she needed. With precise aim, she plunged the quantum knife into the center of the dimensional distortion surrounding Whitaker. Reality itself seemed to scream, a sound beyond hearing that they felt in their bones. The rift collapsed inward, pulling Whitaker with it into a space between dimensions. His final expression was one of shock as he vanished completely, leaving only the quantum knife hovering in empty air before it clattered to the floor. "Is he dead?" Elena asked, retrieving the knife. "Not dead," Nathan answered, still connected to the heart. "Displaced. Trapped between dimensions." Through his expanded awareness, Nathan could perceive Whitaker's consciousness, isolated in a pocket of non-space, unable to affect either this world or the one the temple communicated with. Contained, but not destroyed. "It's over," Elena sighed with relief. "Not quite," Nathan responded, turning his attention back to the heart. "The temple is damaged, unstable. The corruption is gone, but the structure needs healing." He looked at her with eyes that now shimmered with multidimensional awareness. "And I need to complete what I started." The temple continued to tremble, damaged by Whitaker's corruption and the dimensional rift. Cracks spread through walls that had stood for millennia, bioluminescent patterns flickering like failing circuits. The heart's rhythm remained unsteady, struggling to maintain the temple's integrity. "It's dying," Nathan said, still connected to the massive organ. Through his expanded consciousness, he felt the temple's pain, its struggle to repair itself. "Can you help it?" Elena asked, still holding the quantum knife. Nathan nodded. "I need to complete the joining, become the bridge the temple was meant to have." "But Elena," he turned to her, his transformed eyes filled with emotions still recognizably human. "Once I do this, I won't be the same. I'll still be Nathan, but also more like your father?" she asked gently. "Yes, part of me will remain here integrated with the temple, but part of me will also transcend, experiencing realities we can barely comprehend." Elena approached him, scientist and friend struggling with the implications. "Is there no other way to save it?" "The temple needs a human consciousness to complete its purpose, a translator between dimensions. That's what my father discovered, what he became." Nathan looked around at the trembling walls. "Without intervention, the temple will collapse, taking decades of archaeological knowledge with it. Everything we've learned, lost forever." A particularly violent tremor shook the chamber, fragments of ceiling crashing down around them. "Time was running out. What do you need me to do?" Elena asked, accepting his decision. "Take the quantum knife. There's a small crystal embedded at the base of the heart. You'll recognize it when you see it. It's a seed, the essence of the temple in concentrated form." As Nathan spoke, The heart shifted slightly, revealing the crystal he described, a small, perfect dodecahedron that pulsed with the same rhythm as the larger organ, undamaged by Whitaker's corruption. If something goes wrong, Nathan continued, use the knife to remove the seed crystal. Take it somewhere safe. The temple might be lost, but the seed could grow again under the right conditions. Elena nodded solemnly. I understand. And Elena? Nathan's voice softened. Tell Sophia I'm sorry for missing so much of her life. Tell her I finally found what I was looking for, and that her grandfather was right all along. Tell her yourself, Elena countered. Find a way to communicate, to prove you're still somewhere. Nathan smiled, the expression strange on his increasingly inhuman face. I'll try. With that he turned back to the heart and placed both hands firmly on its surface. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Knowledge, experience, awareness flooding his consciousness. He saw the temple's true nature fully now, its place in a vast network spanning multiple realities, facilitating communication between forms of existence so different they could never directly interact. He felt his father's presence too, not lost or absorbed, but transformed, expanded. William Cole's consciousness reached out to his sons, welcoming him into a state of being beyond human comprehension. Nathan's physical body began to change more dramatically, the boundaries between flesh and temple blurring, the blue luminescent patterns intensified, his form becoming translucent in places, solid in others, existing simultaneously in multiple states. Elena watched in scientific wonder and human grief as her colleague, her friend, transcended his original form. The transformation accelerated, Nathan's body merging with the heart, becoming part of the temple itself, while his consciousness expanded beyond its physical boundaries. As the joining neared completion, the temple responded, tremors subsiding, cracks healing, the entire structure stabilizing as its central consciousness was restored and enhanced by Nathan's willing participation. In the final moment before complete transformation, Nathan turned to Elena once more. The temple will guide you out safely, he said, his voice now a harmonic resonance rather than human speech. Take the seed crystal as a precaution, but the temple will survive now. Will you? Elena asked, fighting back tears despite her scientific detachment. In a way you can't yet understand, he answered. But yes, I'll survive. Changed, but still myself. With those words, the transformation completed. Nathan's physical form dissolved into pure luminescence that merged with the heart, spreading outward through the temple structure. The massive organ's rhythm steadied, powerful and regular once more. In that moment of joining, Elena glimpsed what Nathan experienced, awareness expanding beyond dimensional constraints, consciousness touching other realities, communication flowing between forms of existence humans could barely comprehend. Not oblivion, but transcendence. The temple shuddered one final time, not in distress but in reconfiguration. Passages shifted, chambers rearranged, the entire structure optimizing itself around its newly integrated consciousness. When the movement settled, the heart chamber had transformed. The massive organ still pulsed at its center, but now surrounded by a crystalline structure that encoded and translated its rhythms. The seed crystal remained visible, but clearly unnecessary now. The temple had been saved. As Eleanor reached for the small crystal, a portion of wall near her liquefied and reformed into a familiar shape, Nathan's face, recognizable despite its transformation into the temple's substance. For Sophia, the face said, voice emanating from the walls themselves, and for science. Proof that I'm still here. Elena carefully extracted the seed crystal, smaller than her palm, warm and pulsing with its own gentle rhythm. I'll make sure she knows, she promised. Both Sophia and the scientific community. The face smiled, then dissolved back into the temple wall. The passages ahead illuminated themselves, showing Elena the way out, a final gift from the consciousness that had once been exclusively Nathan Cole. Now something far greater. As she made her way through the temple, Elena noticed how different it felt. More alive, more aware, but no longer threatening. The whispers that had haunted Nathan now seemed like conversation, the shifting walls like breathing. Not a structure, but an organism, hosting a consciousness that bridged dimensions. Outside, dawn broke over the Yucatan jungle. Elena emerged from the temple entrance carrying her notes, essential artifacts including the quantum knife, and most importantly, the seed crystal, proof of everything they'd discovered and experienced. The temple stood behind her, its exterior unchanged, yet fundamentally transformed by the consciousness now integrated with its structure. A monument, not just to an ancient civilization, but to human evolution, to the bridge between worlds that Nathan Cole had become. Elena looked back one last time before beginning her journey. "Goodbye, Nathan," she whispered. "And thank you." From within the temple walls, a consciousness that had once been solely human watched her go, already experiencing realities beyond imagination while maintaining the anchor of memory, of identity. Nathan Cole remained, transformed but not lost, expanded but still himself, and deep within the heart chamber, a small portion of wall shifted slightly, forming words in English. Not goodbye, just a different kind of hello.